Am I the asshole for telling my best friend's girlfriend the truth about why he missed her birthday party? Alright, buckle up, because this one's a mess. I, 28 male, have been best friends with Mike, 29 male, for nearly 20 years. We've been through thick and thin together high school shenanigans, college parties, even helping each other through breakups and crappy jobs. Mike's been like a brother to me. We've always had each other's backs, no matter what. That's why this whole situation is so hard for me to talk about. Mike has been dating his girlfriend, Sarah, 27F, for a little over a year now. I really like her, and honestly, she's been good for him. She's sweet, funny, and has her life together in a way that, to be frank, Mike sometimes doesn't. He's got a bit of a wild streak, nothing crazy, just a tendency to act a little irresponsibly, especially when it comes to drinking and making plans. But Sarah seemed to bring out a more grounded side in him, and I was genuinely happy for them. Until, well, things started going sideways. It all began a few weeks ago. Sarah's birthday was coming up, and she had been planning a small get-together with a few close friends. Nothing too fancy, just dinner, some drinks, and hanging out. She was really excited about it, and I knew she'd been dropping hints to Mike about how much she wanted him to be there. Now, here's the thing. Mike is terrible with dates. Not just in the forget your anniversary way, but more like forget his own birthday kind of way. But Sarah had been reminding him for weeks, so I figured he'd actually show up for her birthday. The day of the party rolls around, and I get a text from Sarah asking if I've heard from Mike. She's worried because it's getting late, and he hasn't shown up yet. I try calling him, but no answer. At this point, I'm thinking maybe something happened at work because he had mentioned a busy week, but I still felt uneasy. I head over to the party, and Sarah looks devastated. She's trying to put on a brave face for her friends, but it's clear she's upset that Mike is nowhere to be found. Then, about an hour into the party, I finally get a text from Mike. It's a group text with our usual guys, and it's a picture of him and the rest of the crew at a bar downtown, laughing and taking shots. I couldn't believe it. He was out drinking with the guys on Sarah's birthday, the same birthday he had promised her he'd make time for. I felt my stomach turn because I knew how crushed she would be when she found out. Now, here's where things get complicated. I figured maybe Mike didn't realize how late it was, or that he'd forgotten about the party. I mean, that would be typical of him. But I still didn't understand why he couldn't at least send a text. When I tried calling him again, he finally picked up, and he was clearly drunk. He said something like, "Oh, I had to stay late at work. Couldn't make it." Then he laughed and hung up. At this point, I had two options: lie for him or tell Sarah the truth. I knew if I lied, she'd probably buy it. Mike had already told her he might have to stay late at work, and I could easily cover for him. But Sarah was standing right there, looking heartbroken, checking her phone every few minutes, hoping he'd at least send a message. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there and watch her get her hopes up over something that was never going to happen. So, against my better judgment, I pulled Sarah aside and told her the truth. I told her Mike wasn't at work. He was out with the guys, and he'd lied to her. She went quiet for a moment, then her face crumpled. She asked me if I was sure, and I showed her the picture Mike had sent us from the bar. She just stared at it, her eyes filling with tears. I felt like the world's biggest asshole, but I couldn't lie to her. She deserved better than that. After that, Sarah excused herself from the party and went home. I stayed for a bit, but I couldn't enjoy myself. All I could think about was the fallout that was coming. I knew Mike was going to be pissed when he found out what I'd done, but I also felt like I did the right thing. I just didn't expect it to blow up as badly as it did. The next morning, Mike called me furious. He said Sarah had confronted him after the party and that she was considering breaking up with him. He accused me of stabbing him in the back and said I had no right to get involved in his relationship. I tried explaining that I couldn't stand there and watch her get hurt, but he wasn't having it. He kept saying that I should have covered for him, like I always had in the past, and that I crossed a line by telling Sarah the truth. That was 2 weeks ago, and Mike still isn't talking to me. Sarah, on the other hand, thanked me for being honest with her, but things are still rocky between them. I don't know if they'll make it through this, and now I'm stuck wondering if I did the right thing or if I should have just kept my mouth shut. So Reddit, am I the asshole for telling my best friend's girlfriend the truth about why he missed her birthday? Update. While things escalated, I've been reading through the comments on my original post, and a lot of you had opinions, some in my favor, some not. But most of the feedback got me thinking about my friendship with Mike and whether I've been enabling his behavior all these years. Honestly, that's been a hard pill to swallow. Maybe I have been covering for him too much. Maybe I should have seen this coming. After sitting with that for a few days, I reached out to Mike again. I sent him a long text, apologizing if I hurt him by telling Sarah the truth, but I also told him that I wasn't sorry for doing what I thought was right. I explained that Sarah didn't deserve to be lied to, and that he needed to take responsibility for his actions. I said that if our friendship meant anything to him, we could have a real conversation about why this all happened, but he needed to stop blaming me for his screw-up. Mike didn't respond to the message right away, but when he did, it wasn't what I expected. He apologized, not just for the way he'd acted recently, but for a lot of things. He admitted that he'd been screwing up for a while, and that this situation made him realize how much he'd been taking both Sarah and me for granted. He told me he'd been acting out because he was feeling trapped. He loved Sarah but wasn't ready to fully commit to the serious direction the relationship was heading in. So, instead of being honest with her about his fears, he started sabotaging things, making excuses to avoid big conversations, and lying about dumb stuff like missing her birthday. Mike said he was embarrassed about how he handled everything and that he needed to get his life together. We met up in person a few days later and talked it out. Really talked for the first time in a long while. It was a tough conversation, but it felt like we were finally being honest with each other. As for Sarah, things between her and Mike are still up in the air. She's been taking some space to figure out what she wants. Mike told me he's giving her the time she needs and that he's working on himself in the meantime. Whether or not they stay together, I don't know. But at least now, they're being more upfront with each other. So, that's where we're at. Mike and I are on better terms, and I think this whole mess might have actually saved our friendship in a weird way. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't easy, and it definitely wasn't in this case, but I think it was worth it in the end. Second update, a month later. Hey everyone, it's been about a month since my last update, and I've been thinking about giving some closure to this whole situation. A lot has changed, and not exactly in the way I expected. I guess that's life though. It has a way of surprising you when you think you've got everything figured out. First, let's talk about Mike and me. To be honest, we're no longer friends. I didn't expect it to go this way, but after that long conversation we had, something shifted between us. We weren't mad at each other anymore, but things just didn't feel the same. We tried hanging out a couple of times after our heart-to-heart, but it was awkward. The easygoing vibe we used to wasn't there anymore, and I realized we were mostly just coasting on our past. I guess the whole birthday drama wasn't just about Sarah or that one night. It was a wake-up call for me too. Over the last few weeks, I've been reflecting on our friendship, and I came to the hard realization that we've been drifting apart for a while. We're not the same people we were when we were younger, and I think I was holding on to this idea of Mike being my ride or die because of all the history we had. But lately, I've been seeing that we were heading in different directions for a long time, and the birthday thing was just the final push. I was still in the group chat with the rest of the guys for a while, But every time I saw their messages about going out or making plans, I felt more and more disconnected. They were mostly talking about bar hopping or random stuff I wasn't really interested in anymore. I didn't realize how much I'd grown out of that scene until I saw it all happening without me. It was weird. These were my friends, my people, for years, and now I felt like an outsider. A couple of weeks ago, I made the decision to leave the group chat. No big announcement, no drama, I just quietly exited. I thought someone might reach out to ask if everything was okay, but no one did. And you know what? I was fine with that. It made me realize that I didn't really fit in there anymore, and that's okay. People grow apart. I'm focusing on other things in my life now: work, family, new friendships. It feels weird to say goodbye to a part of my life that was so central for so long, but I think it was time. Now, for those of you who are wondering about Sarah and Mike, here's the update you've probably been waiting for. After taking some time apart, they had a serious conversation about where their relationship was headed. Mike came clean to Sarah about how he'd been feeling trapped, not just because of the birthday drama, but about everything in their relationship. He admitted he wasn't ready for the level of commitment she was expecting, and that he'd been acting out because of his own fears. Sarah, to her credit, took it better than I expected. I think she appreciated the honesty, even if it hurt. In the end, they decided to break up. It wasn't a dramatic screaming breakup or anything like that. It was more like they both realized they wanted different things, and that it wasn't fair to either of them to keep pretending otherwise. Sarah wanted a future with someone who was as committed as she was, and Mike, for all his good intentions, just wasn't ready to be that person. It was sad, but from what I've heard, they both seemed to be handling it pretty well. Sarah and I talked a couple of times after the breakup, and she told me she's doing okay. She's taken some time for herself and focusing on her own happiness. She said she's grateful for everything she learned from her relationship with Mike, even if it didn't work out in the end. She's a strong person, and I know she'll come out of this just fine. As for Mike, I haven't heard much from him directly, but a mutual friend mentioned that he's been keeping a low profile lately. I think he's taking some time to figure out what he really wants, and honestly, that's probably for the best. As for me, I'm in a good place. Losing a longtime friend like Mike was tough, but I don't regret how things played out. Sometimes, friendships change, and that's part of life. I've been putting more energy into the relationships that matter to me now and reconnecting with people I drifted away from over the years. I'm focusing on myself, figuring out what I want, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm moving forward instead of holding on to the past. So yeah, that's the closure to this whole saga. It's not the happy, everything's perfect ending I might have hoped for, but it feels right. Sarah's moving on, Mike's working on himself, and I'm finding my own path too. Life's messy, but sometimes you've got to let go of the things that aren't working anymore to make room for something better. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. Your comments help me see things in a different light. I'm grateful for the clarity they brought. On to the next chapter.